Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Hello, my loves. Welcome. Today's episode is a real and raw one, and I'm really leaning into my edges compared to normal, so I hope you're here for it. Before we dive in, I would love to share that I have currently got some spaces open up for soul readings at the moment. These are for those witches who would love a map to the remedies that your soul came here to heal with, so that you can live your gifts. If you're feeling a little lost on your journey to discovering your gifts and healing yourself even, so that you can live your gifts, or if you'd like some more clarity on the next steps, this could be for you. If that feels juicy only, then you can read more at nicolebarton.co.uk/soul reading. Otherwise, let's dive right into the episode. On The Secret Witch Show today, I am peeling back the veil on what it really means to be a healer. In the raw, chaotic mess of being human, with my nervous system fried, my daughter under the table, don't ask, the boiler broken and my heart cracked open, I show up in the storm to walk with you into the fire. This is not a polished performance, but an invitation to sacred descent. And I'm hoping that it's medicine. In this episode, we explore the holy truth that our rawness, our imperfection, our honest mess is the magic. I share vulnerably about my own edges and what it means to be misjudged, to face projections, to lead without having all the answers, and offer a fierce liberation from the performance of perfection that we've been used to in our culture. I explore the role of the deep work with archetypal remedies in this process, the medicine of being seen and loved in shadow, and the universal law of similars, showing that like does heal like, and our wounds are the way to our gold. Let's dive in. Hello, witches. Today's episode is how to let yourself be raw and messy as a healer and still be magical medicine. And I can honestly say these episodes are perfectly timed. I'm probably going to be a little more raw in this episode today than usual, which is intentional. I'll maybe even allow myself to show up in shadow, because that feels healing in this particular episode, because we're talking about how to let ourselves be raw and messy as healers, particularly as well, but also as humans, like in life. Even if you're not a healer and you're just here wondering how to be raw and messy, like that in itself is, you don't have to be a healer to do that. But as with any remedy that I serve, any teaching, because each episode teaches or shares a remedy, transmits a remedy. And if you're new here and you don't know what a remedy is, don't worry about it. It's essentially just an energetic medicine that I'm expressing through words. But as I do that, I get the medicine that I have called in to talk about. And actually the podcast the topics are chosen by our free Facebook group, people in there. So thank you all for choosing this one for me, because it feels like the last 6 months really have been this raw, messy medicine. And so today, if we're talking about remedies, it feels like archetypal remedy she-wolf and phosphorus flame mixed together. So today feels a great day to explore being messy. Everything about today, this week, this month, and even the last 6 months of this year has been messy, raw and vulnerable. I've probably shared quite a lot on social media. Like there's a deepening into the level of rawness and truth and vulnerability I am bringing to my work, because it's something that is the secret witch ring. I'm going to be talking more to that today. But like this sense of, can I really be myself? Is something that we're here to liberate as secret witches who have learned that it's not safe. And so this morning is a great example. My baby girl was deeply dysregulated and refused to go to school whilst my husband's away. And I had to drop all my plans and just be with her, sitting under the table, kind of hiding away because she was just feeling so dysregulated. And I had to like drop everything and run her a bath, even though I knew that was going to make us late. And we got in the bath and we regulated together. Whilst my boiler packed up, by the way. And I eventually dropped her at a childminder's, not school, 2 hours later than planned. So my whole day at this point is a mess because I meant to record 2 episodes today. And so my nervous system is fried. I'm in this raw, messy period of my life. There are ruptures with family. There are big life challenges. The safety that we have known in our family with the way things have always been has been challenged. Like we're being initiated as a family. And by the way, I look naked if you're watching our video because I'm wearing my comfies and keeping warm. Although it would be an appropriate episode to be naked for. So I share that because I decided even before I saw what this topic was today, because everyone prepares, my team prepares this document for me to kind of create from, and in there I was like, oh cool, what a topic. But even before I saw that topic, I was just going to show up. I'd make a choice. I was like, I'm just going to show up messy or vulnerable this morning, today. I'm due on my bleed. I'm in absolute chaos and uncertainty, as I mentioned, with life. And I honestly feel like I've had perhaps one of the most challenging weeks that I've ever had. And I've had to ask everyone I know for support this week. I even had to cancel clients, which is very rare, one-to-one. And so I'm showing up with no neat, washed, beautiful hair, like just a pulled back bun, a hot water bottle, my daughter's unicorn mug, and some self-soothing. But I am showing up raw, real, because today's about being honest. And so many women project onto me that I have an easy life, that my life must just be all magical roses and chocolates, that I don't understand their challenges. And it's just not true. And I'm quite fiery about people knowing this because I'm actually done with women thinking that I'm perfect. Like, I'm done. And I know that requires me to show up and like have them know, like I can be tempted to project that I am perfect because it feels unsafe to show up messy, just like everybody else like probably is doing the same, especially if you're a secret witch listening to this. But it feels unsafe, especially as healers, because we've been conditioned that doctors are professional, that our healers should have a quick fix, aka that we should know the answers as healers. And so that kind of fantasy is projected onto us as healers, that healers should know the way, that we must be able to rescue our clients and their clients come to us and we should be able to guide them from A to B and be like, okay, this is the way to get there. That so often shows up with women who are here to be healers, expecting that there's some like solid 7-step plan. And there isn't. Like, that is so far from the truth and perpetuates this idea that healers have to be perfect. So I am liberating that lie for us here today on this episode. And in honesty, I'm liberating it for me on this episode because I'm sick of pretending to have it all together. And I'm sad that women who arrive here as secret witches think that they need to have it all perfect to be healers. Because that's what I hear time and time again. Like, oh, what if I don't do this right? What if I fail? And it's like, the truth is, to be a healer requires us to be vulnerable and honest, aka imperfect. Like, if we all show up perfectly, how are our clients going to know, like, oh, this woman's got medicine? They're not. We're just going to be showing up perfectly. So real healers, I want to dispel this myth, real healers don't know the way. If they do, they're in a fantasy of what worked for them working for others. So real healers actually help point people inwards to themselves. And to do that, we don't need to be perfect. And in fact, it's virtually impossible to do that if we are being perfect. Because the universal law, similia similibus, which I talk about a lot, literally means like cures like. AKA, what wounds us also cures us. Which means that when we're able to show up in our raw, vulnerable truth, sharing some of the wounds that we have been through and journeyed with, and I'll say more on that in a moment. But when we do that, we're able to show up raw and messy. That is medicine for someone. It's medicine for someone who resonates with what we're sharing. And energy medicine works on resonance, energy resonance. So when we're transmitting that medicine, people can feel it. They go, oh, that's me. Like cures like. And so ironically, the actual real way to healing is to be raw, vulnerable, and messy. And that is going to be far more medicine than us showing up perfectly from the golden expression that we have this fantasy of. And I'll caveat that with something that might sound conflicting, because the feminine loves paradox. Because our aim as healers is also not to share directly from the wound, but from the healed scar. And in some ways that can sound odd, given I've just said being authentically our messy selves is the medicine. But equally, if we go around just sobbing our hearts out all over social media, directly spewing our wound out, we're likely to only just be serving more of the darkness. People might resonate, but they're not going to be moved. They're not going to be able to transmute that pain or kind of feel the alchemy that's available. And so we want to share from a place of being in the alchemy, or ideally having been in the alchemy, of what the alchemy's created for us, of what we've received from taking the medicine, from drinking our potion first, because that's the kind of sweet spot where people can feel our transformation. And we share from the wound only when we're able to hold ourselves in it. Not to seek soothing from people, which can often be where we're coming from if we're kind of showing up in the wound directly. It's like we're kind of almost like wanting people to hear that. But when we're able to hear that for ourselves, move ourselves through it, and offer truth from that story, that's where we're able to be medicine. But what I will say is this: that doesn't mean showing up perfectly, as if I'm healed, wonderful, I've moved through this, and classic ChatGPT stuff of I used to feel like this, and now I feel like this. It's no. Again, there's almost there's something in that that's almost like trying to get the perfection out of it. I know what I'm saying here is quite nuanced, but what I will say is we don't want to kind of show up perfectly as if I'm healed, because in fact, we are never fully healed. And that's another myth that I want to dispel. I should have called this episode the myths of healing. But the reason I say that is because our wounds are our wounds. And they will show up likely for the rest of our lifetime, maybe even more lifetimes. Because our souls came here, and this is part of the thing of why I do soul mapping, because our souls have come here with a particular purpose in this lifetime. They've come here to alchemize our wounds into gifts and have us, if we're witches, have us serve those as medicine. So our soul literally came here for this wound. There is no quick fix that will ever take away our wounds, even though the young parts of us want them to. Because again, the truth is that we are never going to fix ourselves. We want to, because our society conditions us that if something goes wrong, we need to fix it. We can't have something going wrong. But the real healing is loving ourselves in our wounds, loving ourselves in our wounds. Because the wound is not something to be erased. It's the exact place our soul came to remember its power. So, when I talk about healing, what I'm really inviting you into is having more self-compassion in your wounds, loving ourselves, welcoming home our shadows, which is why I'm showing up with the messily today. We're not here, and I lived in this myth for a long time. I was like, oh yeah, shadow, cool. I'm going to get rid of that. And it's no, we're not here in the work of getting rid of our shadow. Our shadow is our shadow and will likely always be here. But if we can welcome it, if we can love it, if we can show up and be intimate with our shadow, our wounds, we can know ourselves. We discover different parts of ourselves. We unlock doors to healing. And that is the truest healing, to become as intimate as possible with ourselves, to love our shadows home, to be honest with ourselves about our truth, to be authentic, to not try and fix, change or contort, but to love all parts of ourselves. So you'll always hear me say, probably heard me say before, all is welcome, because that's where the healing is. And that's why I'm showing up in the way that I'm showing up today. If you're obviously listening to this, you're not going to see me on a video, but yeah, I was like, no, I'm going to show up raw, messy. You'll hear my vulnerability though. And so that includes especially showing up imperfectly, showing up messily, rawly, vulnerably. So just going back to how we share this for impact, how we share about our journey for impact, we share our journey, we share the messiness of where we've been, and we share what, once we've integrated what's arising. And you'll notice that usually I intentionally don't share about the deep, messy processes I'm in right in the moment that I'm in them. And that's because I want to be able to integrate fully and alchemize them so that they become great medicinal stories later on. However, I will share the raw, vulnerable messiness of them when I do share them, the pain that I traverse, the tenderness, and what I came to see about that as I did the deep work to integrate and alchemize, and not in a way that's like, and then now I'm perfect, but just in a really honest, raw, truthful way of like, this is what I experienced. But also today, and sometimes in general where it's aligned, I do share from the wound, because sometimes it's also magical for women to dispel the idea that I'm a healer witch with everything perfectly together. And so sometimes I do show up in the wound without some kind of resolution. Because again, there's no right or wrong. And so what I wanted to speak to was the piece about dispelling this idea that I'm a healer witch with everything perfectly together, because people project onto me all the time, like, oh, she's never had any money problems. She doesn't know what it's like to be struggling. She doesn't know what it's like to feel anxious and overwhelmed. She doesn't know how scared I am to share my voice. She doesn't know abuse. She doesn't know what it's like to feel powerless, etc., etc. The list goes on. And that's because often they will see me showing up in my power, magic and truth, even like the way that I own my shadow powerfully is often reflected to me that that's what I do. Although again, like I often talk about unconscious competence, and for me, like that's largely an unconscious competence that I've had to work to reclaim and see. But because I show up in my power, magic and truth, even though that doesn't feel the way that I'm showing up to me, they will assume that my work is done. And what happens in that is, and this isn't just with me, this is with other healers as well. Like whenever we kind of project onto healers, like, oh, they're better, they've alchemized, they've healed, they've done this, they've done that, like they're more advanced. We're pedestalizing someone. We're outsourcing our power to them. And the truth is, the only reason that I show up as I do is because I have known all these wounds. Because our gifts are found in our wounds. So if I have a gift, it's because I've traversed my wounds in order to reclaim it and express it. But that doesn't mean, and this is important because I don't want to be pedestalized, and you may not, that's also good. But it doesn't mean that I am complete with this stuff, that I don't meet my own edges of powerlessness, or I don't meet my own edges of disbelief in my magic, or fear of being authentic and sharing my heart so vulnerably. I do. Each time I lean into sharing a post, I still feel that, oh my God, what if I'm abandoned? What if I'm rejected? What if people comment on this and don't like it? They're just deeper edges of the same wounds as we spiral round and round our core wounds. And as I lean into bigger and bigger visions, those wounds are still there at a deeper level. For example, an example of this, at one point, it would have been a big edge to even just share in a group, like, hi, I'm Nicole. Though I've talked about on my podcast before, going to Bali and sharing my voice in a group of 40 people, and how terrifying that was to me. Sharing a post on social media would have at one point been a huge edge, and I've been judged in that as well by my ex-husband, by, people, strangers on the internet. That was an edge. And 2 days ago, I leaned into a new edge. So I'm creating and sharing what's called a non-transactional ethical meta ad to help reach more secret witches, which basically means I'm offering them for them to hear more of my voice rather than selling them something. And I'm doing that from an intentional place to be able to serve more witches with medicine to help them become who they're here to be. And that is a huge edge that brought up so much for me. I mean, from the perspective of power, like I leaned into a big financial edge to choose it in service of my vision to reach more witches with healing. I felt absolutely imperfect. I can't tell you the creative portal I went through in writing this ad. Like, it felt like such a big thing. It was like, oh my God, but it's going to be seen everywhere. And oh, how many people are going to see it? And et cetera, et cetera. And I went through about 1,000 iterations of the wording to get it right before realizing there was no right. I'm like, oh yeah, doesn't have to be perfect. I sobbed for hours at how different my ad was to normal ads. I'm like, this is so long. It's so weird. Like, will people even read this? Will they just think, what the hell is this? Like, why can't I just be the same as everyone else? Like, I sobbed about that. I was like, oh, hang on. This is the witch wound. I faced the visibility fear of like, oh God, what will people think? Will people attack me for being a charlatan? And I faced the reality that when it went live and I was being seen and people were actually disagreeing with me in the comments of the ad, and some even saying, repent, as if I was some like evil sinner. Like, I face that every single day to show up here. Because my truth triggers people unintentionally. Like, it's never my intention to trigger people, but my truth does trigger people. I'm a witch. It's going to. Not everybody is going to feel safe about that. And I will always meet that with love. But it also often means that I face a lot of projection, which I receive and I thank them for genuinely, because it's also a mirror for my own wounds, which means I can replay more gifts. But it looks like, to some, I just glide on through life, and I really want to be honest about the fact that I don't. The other thing that comes up when I'm talking about pedestalizing is that it can also quickly swing into demonizing me when there is no quick fix. And I name this with love because, again, I have also been here. And even though I name that I'm not here for the quick fix, people can demonize me for not providing a quick fix. People can project onto me like, oh, she knows the way, she's got all the answers. And when I don't, and I'm pointing them inwards, we're beginning to really get to the crux of like facing their truth, facing their shadow, like then I become demonized, as if I'm manipulative or as if I failed them, or they can project mother or father wounding onto me and rebel against me, and like it can be explosive. And honestly, I can truly say from my heart, like, this is so welcome. That often that kind of the relationship that I create, and I'll talk more about this, like there's a relationship when we enter into relationship with a soul guide, that when it can be held in love, like if people are willing to come here and take responsibility for the projections that come up in that relationship, there is pure alchemy. And I've been held through my own projections of that with my own guides when I have projected stuff onto them. And there's honestly nothing more healing than speaking out our wounds and being loved in them and owning them in that relationship where we've projected that onto a guide. And I shared this recently actually about my one-to-one work, because I've been actively in the work of showing up more messily in this space of the work I do, because I've seen just how healing it is to show up incomplete in one-to-one work. I'm talking about the healer as well. The way I see it is when we choose to enter deeper one-to-one work, or even any work really, even if it's like in our membership, and we're choosing into that, or some deeper work with a healing guide, we're not just choosing support. We're really being called into, really choosing into being in a deeper soul crucible. It's a soul reclamation. We're being asked to trust that whatever we've been called to that guide for by our soul, because our soul has chosen that, we're being asked to trust that our soul has called us here to receive the medicine that we're meant to receive from that. That this guide, this container, this relationship holds the exact alchemy that we need for our witchy becoming. And what I will say to that, because I've been there, is that is not easy. Like, we often expect, like, oh, if something's aligned, it should feel good, it should feel right, it should feel easy. But actually, my experience of soul is that it actually invites us to feel the very thing that we would rather not feel. There is nothing like shadow work by entering into a soul process to become a healer. Like, it will surface all that stuff. And it can feel really uncomfortable to trust someone to dive into the most intimate places in our hearts and guide us home to ourselves. We don't necessarily want to feel what soul wants us to feel. That's why we've been numbing it and shoving it down. And yet that is where our healing lives, in lovingly meeting holy honesty. I wrote a post about that as well on social media recently, so I'm not going to talk more about that, but I have seen this in my own journey with guides. It's been in the deep spaces where all of me was truly welcome and I was willing to open to that love, where the deepest healing occurred. So that was in the moments where I could stop performing, like not when I got it right, but when I allowed myself to be held in the messy truth, the raw, dark bleeding of my pain. And so I've seen more recently in my one-to-one work especially, but also in the membership, it's just how rare and vital it is to have a space where our raw, messy truth is welcome on both sides, both for the healer and the woman healing. So a space where both the woman healing and the healing guide, can be human and still held in love. And I'm seeing that my willingness to hold space for imperfection and truth is what makes this work so powerful, both myself and for others. Like, that's what makes this transformational. And I have to go first. This is why I'm showing up, living and breathing the remedy of this episode as I show up. So I've been showing up more messy in my sessions, speaking the fiery truths that I've been scared to speak, because I too fear, like, oh, if I speak this truth, am I going to trigger them? Am I going to be abandoned or judged or rejected? So I've been leaning into edges there, and it's been felt, and it's been medicine, and it's been potent. And honestly, I'm so grateful to the women who have remained open to the alchemy and the repair, and some haven't, I'll be honest. But some have, and my heart is so full of love for them. And one of the women that I walk with, Victoria, who desired to be named actually, and celebrated in her walking into fiery alchemy, she recently said, "My soul is so grateful for revealing our holy fire. Soul is meeting where she came to meet, where she has feared and desired for lifetimes, as she now is alive. I'm shedding a skin that stopped me being connected, and I needed to experience the full rawness at that. It feels like I'm standing on my own 2 feet again. My life is up to me. This kind of space is rare indeed." Ooh, those words are just so divine. And I reflected to her, like, our souls choose our clients for the alchemy. And so it's in that rare relational space, and this is a big part of my work, to create a relational space where all is welcome, a relational space of a container of unconditional love. It's in those spaces where we learn how to truly become ourselves by being raw and messy, because people are remedies. So if you are a woman who has stayed in the mess through that fire, then thank you. I love you. Those who are open to the alchemical process, who learning, because we don't always know this, but we have to learn to keep our hearts soft even when things get messy. We have to meet the fire with love, because I'm seeing the more and more we are the most glorious, imperfect mess. And that is life living us as it should, life holding us through it. And it's part of my gift that I don't take lightly, like a descent to the darkness, in the way that I innocently trigger, that's part of my medicine. And it's a challenging part for me to serve. It means that I have to be raw and messy, and yet it's also a part that I'm devoted to. And so I share that because I have been dropping the ball a lot recently, because it's healing to show up as a glorious, beautiful, messy human. And it's liberating for me as a little girl who learned that she had to be perfect, that she could only receive love if she was perfect. And so I truly hope that me sharing this feels healing for you as well. Because honestly, anytime we're not being, what I've seen recently actually, is anytime we're not being our messy, imperfect, raw selves, we are performing. Wow. Like, let that sink in. When we are trying to be perfect, we are performing. Perfection is performance, not truth. And I have seen this deeply recently. I've seen that I've been striving for this perfection a lot. And that's why I'm liberating that in this episode. And there's a reason why that is so vital to stop doing, that goes beyond just like the trauma of having to live up to this kind of perfect image all the time. Because when we perform, we are suppressing ourselves. And when we suppress ourselves, that is the cause of disease in our bodies. The true root of healing is unsuppressing ourselves. The true cause of illness is suppression, according to the magical lens, according to the universal laws, according to homeopathy. And as a secret witch, we are so used to hiding through performance. Because we fear that if we will show up in our messy human selves, we will be judged as too wild, too sensitive, too emotional, too much, weird, crazy, untrustworthy, like you name it, the list goes on. And so we hide our truth. We put on a performance mask, literally like maiming ourselves in the process. Our bodies feel the rupture of this. They're like constantly having to perform and like, yeah. And the reason we do this largely is because we fear that people will leave. We fear that we will be abandoned, chased out the village, burned at the stake as witches. That's the underlying deeper reason for our performance, for our hiding. As I was reading Glennon Doyle's book again, Untamed, the other day, and there was a line in it that I shared on social media that just spoke to me, and it said, "I must live and tell my truth. Folks will come round or quit coming round. Either way, anything I could lose by telling the truth was never mine anyway. I'm willing to lose anything that requires me to hide." Oof. And that is the heart of it, isn't it? The witch wound, or the archetypal phosphorus wound that you could talk to as well. We've been exploring that in membership in the Apothecary. If you want to join us, it's still ongoing live. But ultimately, the heart of it is that we fear that if we allow ourselves to be raw and messy, especially as healers, but in life, like the fear is we'll be abandoned, like that we'll have people reject us or judge us or move away, and then we'll be alone, unloved. And I feel the pressure of that. I feel the fear that if I show up messy, those who think I have the quick fixes will leave. Like, even though I don't really want those who are looking for quick fixes, it's not what I'm here for. But it's human nature to fear abandonment. And like, if we've experienced abandonment trauma, like phosphorus often has as an archetypal remedy, we will do everything we can to avoid experiencing that trauma again, largely leaving us pretending that we're perfect. And I have spent a lifetime doing this. And in fact, in my gene keys, phosphorus shows up twice. So phosphorus is the fear of abandonment. So we dull our fire and we end up pretending, essentially. Phosphorus shows up twice in my archetypal soul map, but truth also shows up twice in my gene keys. And so I'm literally here. My medicine is for truth and liberating the fear of abandonment to express truth. So I am here to say I am not perfect. And at the moment, everything I know is falling apart. I'm being misjudged for my boundaries by family. I'm up against uncertainty in our lives in all areas. I've reinvested a lot of my profits into my business so that it can expand and reach even more secret witches, to be of service to healing and to helping the planet heal, helping the world heal by bringing more people into their gifts. And still, some one-to-one clients have shown up in shadow, projecting onto me and judging me for charging too much. And they have no idea of the depths I go to provide for my community. Like, my membership is pay what you can afford. Some of the levels don't even cover the costs for people to be in there. My heart is truly here for the healing, not the money, else I'd not still be here all these years later. And I was judged just yesterday for only caring about the money when I refused to pay $150 to appear on somebody else's homeopathy podcast, even though I'd offered an exchange to come on my show. And I don't charge for mine because I value the gifts and the medicine that my guests offer by sharing their messages with us. I value people as medicine. And she rejected me, and I honoured myself in that exchange. And it's messy, and it's raw, and it's truthful. And that's where life feels alive. And I can feel the edge in sharing even this. Like, the point is, my inner little girl still lives in the fear that if I don't show up perfectly, everyone will leave. She is still striving, my inner little girl is still striving really hard to be loved, because we all do. And that said, I've also done a lot of deep work to love myself in these patterns. That's why I can out them so publicly and let you know about them and share them, because I've become intimate with these wounds. I've loved myself in them. I've welcomed them. In other words, I'm becoming good with my little girl's fears, her wanting to be perfect, her striving hard, her fear of abandonment. I'm becoming good with my imperfections, good enough to be able to share them. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be able to name them here because of the level of shame. So the shame is falling away as I speak this out loud. And I suspect that as people see me come down off the pedestal and see that I'm just a human witch, imperfect, feeling the same rawness that they feel, they will begin to feel that as medicine and hope and possibility. Some might judge me because we're conditioned that healers are to have all the answers. And honestly, I don't. What I do have that is a deep gift is a lot of wisdom about how to go inwards and find our own answers, because that is where the gold is. So what the real medicine is learning the process for accessing these lost, shamed, hidden parts of ourselves that want to stay hidden but are unconsciously running the show. Like, if we don't look here, if we don't get intimate with these wounds, they continue to unconsciously create for us. Our fear will be like, no, you stay hidden. Like, you are not ready to be a healer. You stay hidden, you stay there, you be a good girl, you fit into society, you perform. But as we start to look and peel back the layers and go, hang on a minute, but that's a perfectionism wounding. Like, how can I love myself in that? It starts to heal and liberate us. It starts to help us unlock parts of ourselves that we hadn't known. And that's how archetypal remedies work. The witch is, the inner apothecary that I often talk to of the witch. Because there's lots of different remedies within us. Like, we have our own inner apothecary of remedies. And these remedies will act from shadow without us knowing unconsciously until we make them conscious. So the only reason that I am able to show up raw and messy as a healer is because I have journeyed with archetypal remedies to be able to illuminate my wounds, my perfection wounds, my shame, my fear of judgment. Archetypal remedies Aurum Gold, Remedy of Gold, helped me to see my perfection tendencies. Archetypal Rosa helped me to love myself in them. Archetypal She-Wolf and Luna helped me to see my fear of judgment. Archetypal Phosphorus helped me to see my abandonment wounds. And these are archetypal remedies. They're sacred mirrors that help us to understand our wounds and our soul medicine. And this is the healing process, to come to know ourselves intimately, honestly, and like truthfully looking at ourselves in the mess, in the rawness, and having compassion until we can begin to love ourselves in those parts of ourselves. Because then they have less control over us. Then we can show up raw, messy, vulnerable, and not let the fear of abandonment stop us from outing ourselves. And that is when we become medicine for others who are hiding parts of themselves. Like, as we become the medicine, as we free those parts of ourselves that we've shamed and suppressed, then other people are able to feel them. So we become medicine. By healing ourselves, we become the remedy for others. So the real question, if you're interested and to ponder as we come to the end of this, is I'm just noticing this is a shorter episode, but feels potent. The real question, which is left to ponder, is, well, what remedy are you here to be? Like, which remedy is your soul here to express into the world through your own messy, raw alchemy? Like, what are you here to help others stop hiding? And I suspect that the answer to that is in the rawness that you fear people seeing the most. Like, that is going to be where your medicine is. So there's a juicy question in that to ponder. Yeah. I am going to complete with a poem that I absolutely love, that I remembered recently, that speaks to this so beautifully. The other thing I just want to say before I do is that often the way to becoming raw and messy and vulnerable is through the body. Like, we often can think this is an intellectual process, this kind of knowing ourselves is something that we do just through intellectualism. But actually, the route to soul is in the descent into the body. So often we don't know ourselves because we've been numbing, shaming, like ignoring, splitting off from our body. We've been ignoring the sensations. So my invitation as a place to start is by coming home to the body. And what that can just simply look like is just by listening to the body. We want to reincarnate into our soul, into our body. So I'm going to share the reason why I say that is because the poem is called "There Is No Cure for the Reality of Incarnation," which is essentially the gift of being human in a body. The reality of soul. And it's by Maya Luna. I'm going to read it now. Everyone is glorious, radiant, brilliant, powerful, broken, neurotic, fragile, confused. Have you noticed? Every single person is a beautiful, brilliant, flaming hot mess. Have you ever met a human being who wasn't? Nearly every paradigm of healing, personal development, religion, or spirituality has this one thing in common: a rejection of the reality of what it means to be alive. A fantasy of perfection, always just on the horizon. Everyone is going, everyone wants to get there, yet no one ever arrives. The goddess of reality, of sacred immanence and holy incarnation, we have demonized her, pathologized her, sought to transcend and escape her, tried to purify her and improve her into something she never was and never will be. We worship the conqueror, even though we never conquer. Who is the glory of that one only known inside defeat? It's a beautiful mess down here. It always was and always will be. No one is ever not broken. How could it be any other way? Life is constantly pulling us apart. We put ourselves together and get pulled apart again. We are mortal beings wed to gravity and time, stitched with fragile, tender skin, with a heart that feels and needs and never truly knows. The fantasy of purification is everywhere. The delusion of being able to win and conquer life is what everyone is selling. Religion, spirituality, consumerism, self-improvement is that carrot on the stick that misses the glory of the goddess right under your nose. Everyone is going, yet no one ever arrives. I am not suggesting passive limp acceptance. I am saying get on your knees and meet the truth of what life really is. Keep fighting, keep healing, keep creating, keep dreaming. But stay awake to your holy brokenness, your forever brokenness, entwined with holy perfection. Open your eyes to how glorious and damaged every single person is. Embrace a vision of healing that includes the wholeness within the wound. Bow to the crazy wisdom mistress of creation. There is no cure for the reality of incarnation. Ooh, I'm feeling emotional reading that. Yeah. Wow. Ooh. Well, my loves, that is it for this episode. I would love to hear what you took away from that. Yeah, just you be you. You be you. If you'd like to join me for some realness, some rawness, and going deeper in that messiness, then please do reach out, or you can join our apothecary. I'll put the links in the show notes if you, depending on whether you want some help on knowing what is for you. You're so welcome to reach out. But for now, I'm going to leave you with our takeaways, and I will see you next time. Lots of love. Enjoy being raw and messy. A very raw episode for me. Here are my takeaways. Our mess is the medicine. When we show up raw, real, and imperfect, we become living remedies for others walking the same path. Perfection is a performance. Hiding behind a polished image disconnects us from our truth and suppresses our soul's power. Real healing lives in holy honesty, not in pretending to be healed, but in becoming intimate with our wounds and loving ourselves there. Archetypal remedies teach us to feel and express our wildness, vulnerability, and fear of abandonment with honesty and fire in a way that heals us. Projections are part of the path of being a healer. As healers, we will be pedestalized, judged, and misunderstood, and our work is to stay open, not perfect. People are remedies. True transformation happens in relational spaces where both guide and seeker are allowed to be gloriously human. Oh, my love.